Hi, I'm Brent Rossi, and this is a dino riding episode of the Super Nintendo Chronicles. Well, here it is, the massive game that pretty much everyone with an SNES owned or at least played. Super Mario Bros. 4, Super Mario World. The second launch title for the Super Famicom in Japan, and the first pack-in game in North America, Super Mario World was Shigeru Miyamoto's latest and greatest installment in the venerable Mario franchise, a game that was as close to a sure thing as you could get when it was released on August 23, 1991. By now, its predecessor, Super Mario 3, had gone on to become the best-selling game of all time. And while the Mario formula hadn't yet been formalized per se, there were a lot of expectations that people were looking for in this, the latest Mario game. On the most basic level, the one Mario constant was tight platforming in a colorful world, and thankfully, this game delivered. As a minor aside, why wasn't this game episode 1 of this series? It was launched alongside F-Zero in Japan and is arguably a much bigger title. Well, as a general rule, when games are released on the same day in North America, I will release them in the order that they were released in Japan, and then in alphabetical order. And I'm sure that there'll be some exceptions to this rule. For instance, there are a few double episodes coming up that will break it, but in general, I'll try to stick to that ordering. Anyway, Super Mario World is a direct sequel to Super Mario Bros. 3. As Mario, Luigi, and the princess make their way for a well-deserved vacation in the far-off world of Dinosaur Land. Of course, it doesn't take long for the princess to become kidnapped by King Bowser, and the brothers dutifully make their pursuit. They hop and bop their way through 7 worlds, defeating the Koopalings, Bowser's children and lieutenants, before finally facing off with Bowser himself. In other words, a setup very similar to Super Mario Bros. 3. Early on, Mario meets Yoshi, the most notable addition to the Mario franchise in this installment. Full name, and I'm not making this up, I promise, T. Yoshisaur Munchakoopas. Yoshi is one of a race of multiple colored dinosaurs, also called Yoshi, who have been trapped in eggs by Koopa's minions. Now Bowser's army has taken over all of Dinosaur Land and erected strongholds that Mario must navigate on his route to the princess. Yoshi's main use is as Mario's ride, one with tons of great features, including tough boots that can withstand the spikiest traps and enemies, and a prehensile tongue that can be used to capture and devour both enemies and power-ups alike.
Introducing the next generation from Nintendo. New Super Mario.
As the flagship game for the console, Super Mario World was Nintendo's opportunity to show the world what the system could do, and it did not disappoint. Along with presenting a huge world for Mario to explore, Super Mario World made great use of the Super Nintendo's expanded color palette, as well as the rotating and scaling effects made possible by Mode 7. With additional buttons, they were also able to expand Mario's moves. L and R allow Mario to look ahead or behind in search of secrets or planning the next jump. As well, a press of X unleashes Mario's spin jump, which while not as high as the standard jump, allows him to smash through blocks and, somehow, bounce off of spikes which would otherwise do him harm. However, even with Yoshi and some of the new moves spicing things up, Super Mario World feels a bit conservative, especially compared to its predecessor, where Super Mario Bros. 3 felt like a bunch of bold experiments with tons of novelty in each world, and some especially memorable surprises late in the game, like the Karibu Shoe or Giant Land. Super Mario World is much less adventurous. Instead, it offers a more cohesive universe, which slowly rolls out new ideas and then iterates on them, with no huge shakeups. It's also a bit simpler and easier to understand. For instance, there's no longer an inventory where you can hoard power-ups for a rainy day, or the myriad of chests and toad houses where you would pick those up. Instead, you now automatically store a single power-up in reserve if you pick up a second. Speaking of power-ups, there are far less of them. Both games have the Mario standbys of the Mushroom, Fire Flower, and Invincibility Star, but Super Mario Bros. 3 added the Super Leaf, Frog Suit, Tanuki Suit, Hammer Brothers Suit, and P-Wing. Super Mario World, on the other hand, dropped all of these additions in favor of just 2 new power-ups, the Cape Feather and the Power Balloon. Now, the Power Balloon is a timed power-up, and creates Balloon Mario, who has the ability to briefly float, which, similar to the Superstar, is situational and doled out infrequently. More notable is the Cape Feather, which at first seems like Mario 3's raccoon powers, without the raccoon ears. Both give Mario a short-range spinning attack, both give the power of flight, and both require a running start to get said flight off the ground. But that's really where the similarities end. While the Super Leaf granted limited, easily controlled timed flight, and the rare P-Wing unlimited flight, Mario's cape presents a much more complex mechanic. Once a caped Mario takes to the air, he soars upwards until reaching the apex of his flight, at which point he begins to descend, dive-bombing at the ground. By pulling the controller back in the opposite direction, the player can allow Mario to open up his cape and gain altitude, slowing his speed and halting his descent. Then a skillful player can carefully rock Mario back and forth, slowly gaining altitude while continuing forward in a delicate sine wave of flight. Mess up the timing of this procedure, and you would quickly find Mario descending towards the ground, and possibly his death. For novice gamers, the cape still offers the ability to go higher than ever before, but a truly masterful player can now stay airborne indefinitely, and reach areas that are otherwise inaccessible. The cape is a great indication of the design philosophy at play in Super Mario World. Instead of a lot of power-ups, Mario World has a few, whose mechanics it wants you to master. The Fire Flower now turns defeated enemies into coins, and using the spin jump while so empowered now spits fireballs in either direction. The cape is, as mentioned previously, a powerful tool that offers unlimited flight in the correct hands. And then there's Yoshi. Along with his enemy-eating abilities and tough footwear, Mario's Dino Companion allows you to take a free hit. Should you take it, Mario hops off in a brief period of invincibility while Yoshi runs away. If the player is able to mount again quickly, you can continue riding as if nothing has happened. As such, Yoshi can give a skilled player many more hits than a traditional power-up. But that's not the end of Yoshi's tricks. Yoshi also gains additional powers when he eats most Koopa shells. Red shells become a triple spread fireball when spat out. Yellow shells allow him to produce a damaging dust cloud when he lands from jumps. And purple shells allow flight, which is controlled similarly to the P-Wing from Mario 3, a much easier to control version that allows for a lot of tricky maneuvering that would otherwise be incredibly difficult, if not impossible, with the cape. Yoshi's only able to hold a shell in his mouth so long before automatically swallowing it. But a skilled player can stop, drop the shell, and eat it again to hold onto the power-up as long as possible. There are also the colored Yoshis, who automatically gain their color-coded power no matter what color of shell that they eat. Additionally, they will gain that shell's power on top of that. And if a Yoshi manages to eat a Mario-seeking rainbow shell, he'll have all three powers, until the shell is spat out or swallowed. Finally, there is the most cruel of Yoshi's benefits, the ability to leap from his back in mid-air, which gives a skilled player the chance to recover from a bad jump into a bottomless pit by abandoning your dinosaur ally to his fate and springing back to safety. Basically, Mario's kind of a monster, but I guess if you were paying attention to Donkey Kong Jr., we already knew that. There are other mechanics that have been expanded for Super Mario World, most notably the ability to grab items, be they empty Koopa shells, the new purple blocks, or the Mecha Koopas that factor heavily into the final boss fight. Whereas Mario 3 allowed holding onto a Koopa shell here and there, Mario World features many puzzles and enemies that require careful upward tosses to find victory. In fact, the entire world map of Mario World is kind of a puzzle in of itself, with many levels having hidden exits that lead off to alternate paths through the world. There are paths that might avoid a boss castle entirely, reveal the globe-spanning Star World, or lead to one of the Switch Palaces, special spots that allow you to populate maps with extra blocks that can be used as platforms. There are also the tricky ghost houses, each of which require extensive exploration and trial and error to uncover the exit. These levels offer an interesting challenge apart from your traditional platforming action, although they also offer the opportunity to end up stumped. They're not terribly intuitive, and I've personally seen many a fledgling gamer give up on these levels, or at least bug someone else to beat it for them. Ghost house puzzles aside, Mario World is incredibly accessible, and I saw many a non-gamer throw their hat into the ring in order to give this game a try. At every family gathering at my house, my older, non-gamer cousins would line up to get their turn at the game, in order to jump on the back of Mr. Gobbly Man or shoot some flaming muck-mucks at each other. Clearly, Mario is not for hardcore gamers only, and I don't think Nintendo would have it any other way. Now, I'm not sure if my thoughts on playing Super Mario World today are particularly useful to new players. Obviously, it's a top-tier platformer by the gods of the genre. But where does it sit in today's pantheon? Well, I got my Super NES as a kid. Super Mario World was my first and only game for quite a while, and as such, I delved through each and every inch of every single level, beating it backwards and forwards, although not without the help of Nintendo Power's full player's guide. In preparation for writing this script, I sat down to play, and within a couple of hours had beaten half of the game, including unlocking all of the Star Road and uncovering each branching path that I came across. I didn't have to stop and check a fact once. This game is hardwired into my muscle memory. I haven't seriously played Mario World in about 20 years, but it's still there inside me. Each secret, each trick of the level design and physics, I think that should speak highly to the game, but I certainly can't be unbiased towards it. I still remember calling my family into my grandmother's rec room to show everyone I had beaten the game for the first time, the feeling of genuine accomplishment. I can't remember any other game since that would have gotten that reaction out of me. But it makes sense. Mario World's tight design presents a lot of challenges to be mastered. And for kids like me who were lucky to get one new game a year, that was a challenge eagerly accepted. There was something worth being proud of when you saw the 96 star beside your Mario save file, over and on top of getting through some seriously evil level design in the special world. And hey, give yourself a pat on the back for surviving those awful 90s slang while you're at it. Tubular? Gnarly? Mondo? Ugh, Jesus, take the wheel. Super Mario World was obviously a gigantic hit, and a deserved one. It was the true killer app for the Super Nintendo, and it would take a long time before a game even close to its equal would be featured on the system. It also launched Yoshi into the public consciousness, who has since gone on to become a popular character in his own right. Fantastic gameplay, graphics, and music, what else can you ask for? Aside from being a dirt common game for the Super Nintendo, and included on some cartridges along with Super Mario All-Stars, Super Mario World has been released on the Game Boy Advance, as well as both the Wii and Wii U Virtual Console. While not as ubiquitous as the original Super Mario Bros., there are a lot of ways to play this game. So what are you waiting for? Super Mario World, an all-time classic. For more information on this project, check out sneschronicles.tumblr.com, or maybe click on one of these videos to see previous episodes. Oh hey, you can also subscribe to stay up to date and know when the latest episodes are coming out. That's what the cool kids are doing. Promise. See you next time.